If you're looking to build a strong, wide, thick back, then you're in the right place because today we're going to go through 5 of the best exercises to build huge back muscles. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so exercise number 1 that we're going to talk about is the lat pull down. Now this is a fantastic movement for building back width, working on the lats quite a lot. There are different variations that you can do in terms of how you hold the handles, and there are a lot of different handles that you have. So today we're going to talk about this machine that we have here, Prime, which is a very fantastic lat pull down machine, but we'll also go through a cable variation that's a little bit more versatile. So we're going to start by looking at the machine lat pull down. And with this, one of the things that you really want to take advantage of is the pad here. Okay, this locks you in place, it gives you more control. So when you're using this, you want to set it up in a way where you can get your legs underneath relatively comfortably, but you're able to push into this to act as a counterweight to the weight that's pulling you up. All right, so from here, I make sure that I have the pad set at a good height. I'm able to lock my legs in when I'm in this position. From here then, I start from a full stretch. It's fine if my shoulders are elevated here, but when I initiate the pull, I want to retract my shoulder blades. So I want to pull my shoulder blades back. So this allows me to engage my lats properly through the set, okay, through each movement. Otherwise, what will end up happening is I'll end up rounding here like this. If you're seeing a person's shoulders round a lot at the bottom of the rep, then they're probably not retracting their scapula enough. So I want to initiate by pulling my shoulder blades back and then driving the elbows down under control. And then I have this pad here to stop me from flying out of the seat, especially when I'm using heavy weight throughout each set. So control up, keep the elbows relatively close to the side, and drive the elbows down. So we just demonstrated on the machine lat pull down, but if you don't have that available, then another alternative is to just use a cable stack. You can pull a bench up, and this will be pretty good too. One of the disadvantages of this is that you don't have the leg support to kind of lock you in, but you just need to try and brace that a little bit more, especially if you don't have the machine available. This is still a very, very good alternative. Now from here with this, I've set it up with a different handle, so I'm going to be focusing more on a pronated grip. And in terms of the cues and the technique, everything is basically the same. Still focusing on keeping slightly extended posture so that I'm not rounding the shoulders at the bottom and controlling on the way up here like this. Now with this pronated grip, you can see that my elbows are a little bit more out to the side. You'll get a little bit more of targeting on the upper back here, especially if you lean a little bit more, which you might have to if you're using a cable stack, just to kind of act as that counterbalance here. So you are potentially hitting slightly different muscles, but you're still focusing a lot on the back, hitting the lats and then a little bit of the upper back for some thickness there as well. Okay, so exercise number 2 that we're going to talk about is chin-ups. Now chin-ups are a fantastic exercise, especially if you have minimal equipment available. They hit very similar muscles to what you would do with something like a lat pull down, but you just have to make sure that you're keeping the form locked in and everything under control. Now there are ways to regress it if it's quite difficult, but for the most part, I would consider it a more advanced version of something like a lat pull down. So when we're doing chin-ups or pull-ups, okay, there are a few different ways that you can do these. You can go for a supinated grip, you can go for a pronated grip, or a neutral grip, which are all variations that you could do with the lat pull down as well. One of the things that I'm going to do is, you can see on my hands I have some chalk to help with my grip. Okay, this isn't a grip strength exercise, or that's not how we're using it. We're using it to build a good back, so I don't want my grip to be a limiting factor. Okay, now when I'm demonstrating, you can see I have a step here because I don't really want to be having to jump up to grab the handles. All right, one of the things that that's going to do is make me end up swinging loads and having less control. I want to do this under as much control as possible. So I want to start from a relatively dead stop position if I can help it. So from here, I can stand up on the step so that I have good reach. I can reach pretty well without having to kind of overextend. And then I can go for whatever grip I feel most comfortable with or whatever grip I want to use to target the slightly different musculature as I go through. We're going to go for a neutral grip at least just to start. So I'm grabbing here like this, get into this hang position, and then same form as what I was doing when I was doing a pull down. Okay, so I want to be pulling the shoulder blades back, initiating by retracting the scapula, driving the elbows down to bring myself up to the bar, and then back down here like this, getting a full stretch at the bottom. One of the most common mistakes that you'll see when people are doing chin-ups is they tend to cut the range short at the bottom. So they come down like halfway and then come back up. But you want to try and get this full stretch all the way down if you can before you go into the next rep. From here then, I could also go for a pronated grip. So here like this, same kind of thing. You'll see the elbows are a little bit more out and they come down and in a little bit more, and it might target the upper back that slight bit more. But in terms of form, everything is the same. Control, drive the elbows, get a full stretch at the bottom before you go into the next rep. Exercise 3 that we're going to talk about are straight arm pull downs. Now these act as a fantastic accessory to some of the other movements that we've already covered, like the chin up and the lat pull down, working on that back width with that vertical pulling motion. One of the good things about these is they don't involve the biceps. The lat pull downs and the chin ups are compound movements, so they do involve the vertical lats, pulling, etc., but they also do involve a lot of the biceps as well, whereas this takes those out of the equation. So when we're looking at straight arm pull downs, the most common attachments that you're going to see people using are either the rope or a straight-ish bar. This one has a few zigzags in it, but a straight bar or some bar sort of the shape are both fine to use, okay? Now, they're both very, very similar in terms of benefits and in terms of the muscles that you're going to hitting, but when it comes to using the straight bar, this one allows for slightly better force transfer. It's a little bit easier to control, so I feel like for this one, it's a little bit better for beginners, especially if you're worried about instability during the movement. But in terms of technique, most things are going to be the same. So we'll demonstrate here on the rope first. Main thing when you're doing this, sit back slightly, okay, so that you can get a decent amount of flexion in the shoulders at the top here. So my arms relative to my torso are quite high, rather than starting here where I'm at basically like 90 degrees to my torso. So I sit back slightly so I can get to a slightly more overhead position. Doesn't have to be directly overhead, but just a decent amount up top here. From here then, I try and maintain stability in this position while focusing then on driving the arms down, keeping the arms relatively straight, okay? One of the biggest things that we see with this is that people will turn it into a tricep extension. So what that means is as they're going down, they tend to start to bend the arms and straighten them, which is great for training the triceps, but if we're trying to focus on the lats, then we want to keep the arms relatively straight and just driving them down in this sweeping motion here like this. So it's fine for the elbows to be slightly soft, but I don't want to see a change in arm angle throughout the rep. I just want the movement to be at the shoulder. You can see as well that I'm keeping my arms relatively close to my sides and then driving through the movement here. Some people will like to open the chest slightly at the bottom to feel a slightly better contraction, which is also fine, but just make sure that you're not overly swinging into each rep. You want to try and maintain control throughout each one. From here, if I'm using the straight bar, most of the stuff is the same. You're going to be in a slightly wider grip, which is also fine. But from here, I keep everything else the same. Again, trying not to turn it into a tricep extension. So I'm pressing through the palms here when I'm using the bar and maintaining that form with a relatively straight arm. Exercise number 4 that we're going to talk about are rows. Now, rows are more of a horizontal pulling motion. It allows a lot more for scapular retraction here at the back, which is going to work on back thickness. There are a few different ways that you can do them in terms of grips, similar to the lat pull down. We're going to talk about machine variations, but we'll also talk about cable variations as well. So starting with the machine rows, this machine is fantastic because it offers you a chest support. Now, there are a lot of different variations and different machines that you'll have. So the one that you have might not have exactly this variation, but this acts very similar to what we were talking about earlier with the lat pull down, where it acts as like a counterweight. The machine's going to be pulling you this way, so the chest support stops you from being pulled off balance and allows you to stay in control throughout the movement. Now, there are a few different ways in terms of the way you hold the handles. You can go for a more neutral grip, or you can go for a more pronated grip, or you can even go for a supinated grip. All are fine, all are going to target slightly different musculature. But from here, the main thing when it comes to focusing on form is allowing yourself to get this full stretch, making sure that you have the range to extend the arms and then retract the scapula as you drive the elbows back and squeeze the shoulder blades together at the end of the movement. Now, when it comes to doing rows, one of the biggest things that you want to try and focus on is not swinging the body back and forth. It might allow you to lift a lot more weight, but if I'm here and I'm overcommitting and then really driving back, then I'm going to be working a lot more muscles than just the back. So if I want to focus on isolating the movement a little bit, then I want to stay in control throughout. So now I'm just going to demonstrate the same thing using the cable. Now, again, same rules apply. Like I was talking about on the lat pull down, you won't have that counter support for the chest, so you will just need to brace that little bit more. One of the things that you also want to be mindful of when you're doing rows on a cable stack is that the cable is set up at the correct height. You want to have a relatively straight line of pull. So one of the easiest ways to gauge that is by looking at the cable when you're pulling it towards you. If it's angled too much one way or the other, up or down, then you may want to adjust the height of the actual pulley system. From here, we're going to do a pronated grip. So on the machine, I know I was demonstrating a neutral grip, but from here, we're going to demonstrate a pronated grip, which is going to be elbows more wide. And you can see that I'm using my feet to brace here so that I'm not going to be swinging back and forth. Elbows are a little bit wider here, so a little bit more upper back focused. Still getting that full stretch, but again, now being more careful that it doesn't pull me too far forward so that I don't end up swinging backwards as I row. I just try and maintain a relatively consistent torso angle as I do each rep and squeeze at the end here. So exercise 5 that we're going to talk about are face pulls. Now these act great as an accessory to things like your rows, which is going to focus more on back thickness. One of the other benefits is that it's just great for overall shoulder health. So people who have issues with their upper back, any tightness or any issues there, this can help to rectify those a little bit. The most common attachment that you'll see people use when they're doing face pulls is the rope. Now this works fine. There may be some people who will argue that you don't get enough range of motion, which to an extent I agree with. You could get a little bit more, which might make it a little bit better. So you will see people using longer ropes if they have access to them, or even attaching two, which you can go for if you have the option available. But this is still perfectly fine. From here, when you're grabbing, you're gonna go for this inward rotation here like this. So my thumb and my forefinger are closest to the ends here. And then I'm gonna stand back like this, bend the knees slightly. From here, I start with my arms slightly elevated like this, so slightly above shoulder height. And then there are two variations that I can do. The first one is just sort of pulling kind of towards my neck, still focusing on the scapular retraction and squeezing my shoulder blades together to really work the rear delts and the mid traps and a few muscles of the mid and upper back. But from here, another variation that we can go for, which from a very similar position, I just focus on opening out here like this. So this one will also involve a little bit more of the rotator cuff, which is good for shoulder health overall. You might get a little bit more of a squeeze at the end here as well. When I'm doing this one of the cues that I often give is to think of a double bicep pose at the end. So I'm getting my thumbs towards the wall behind me as I'm doing the reps, feeling that squeeze at the end, and then still letting my arms fully straighten when I return through the eccentric portion. That's it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like, and if you have any ideas for future videos, then drop it in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.